Hello and a very warm welcome to another episode of Centrum Guardians 2012, where we tell the stories of the men and women in our emergency services. In this episode, we meet rescuers from several different services, but once again, they have one thing in common. They were the last hope for people in trouble. We're looking for the Centrum Guardian of the Year 2012, and as you know by now, you get to decide who will be awarded that title by voting. Who inspires you to live life at 100%? Vote for that team or that individual and make sure they go through to the next round.
So I was actually preparing myself for the worst. Got there, confirmed everything.
Izan, just confirm that, please, mate.
At 1:45 on the morning of the 24th of August last year, a call came through here to the Tygerberg Communication Centre. A structure had collapsed on the outskirts of Stellenbosch. People were trapped. Stellenbosch Fire was dispatched. Before the end of that night, a variety of other services would also be involved, all dispatched from here. On a cold August night, bad weather was rolling in from the sea. A group of homeless men warmed themselves near a small fire. With rain pelting down, they ran for cover under an abandoned construction site.
Right, okay. Also, let's just quickly confirm that, mate.
In the early hours of the morning, an emergency was called in. A fire crew from Stellenbosch was sent to a vacant field.
It was very dark and there was lots of trees and tall grass.
We couldn't see anything, everything was dark.
Dark and quiet, no sign of any disaster.
We walked and walked and walked and it was very still and I was wondering, sure, what have we got here?
The emergency crew then came across an unusual structure in the empty field.
I saw the brick walls, which is about knee height, and then I lit the torch over it.
We just saw like the concrete slab. It was all cracked up and it was all like falling in, sunken in almost.
The crew struggled to make sense of what they were seeing.
The next moment, your light beam just hit this arm, and all you see is an arm and a lot of concrete sheeting.
At first he didn't speak, he didn't move, and we thought it was just, obviously the person was dead or something, because we didn't know.
The trapped man was alive and desperate.
And then he started talking and screaming and whatever and crying.
Just take nice and deep breaths. We're going to get some more equipment.
From the way he moved his arm, he looked panicked. He really looked hysterical.
You need to lie still, we're coming back, all right?
The man was trapped under 2 tons of unstable concrete.
There was a concrete block coming over here and another one behind him. So he had his arm in between the crack of 2 concrete blocks.
The blocks were in danger of collapsing in on him.
I saw that this is more than just an ordinary case.
Metro Rescue 175.
Clive called in Metro Rescue for backup.
Metro, we have a situation here.
Me and Clive discussed the whole thing and decided, okay, well, somehow somebody's going to need to get closer to the patient to just calm him down a little bit, and then we're definitely going to need some backup and some more equipment and vehicles because what we've got isn't nearly enough.
Don't worry, I'm still here. You're not alone.
You don't know what's going to give next and where to go and what to do.
The rescue crew needed to find a way to get nearer to the man.
Couldn't actually go onto the concrete, that's how we used the ladder. We fixed the ladder onto the concrete and then also supporting on the ground itself.
And then 1 or 2 people can crawl onto the ladder and just get to the patient. And I thought, well, maybe we could even try the drip like that.
Hanging on a precipice, they managed drip access.
To give him fluids and maybe try and give him warm fluids. Because the patient was wet and cold at that time.
With the drip in place, they waited for Metro Rescue to arrive.
The patient just became inconsolable for a while. He started struggling, and so then I decided, okay, well, it's not that long till the rescue guys is there. So I got onto the ladder.
Jean cautiously made her way across the ladder to reach the man.
And by then he struggled his drip out again, so we couldn't continue whatever treatment we were giving.
They're gonna help us to get you out now, okay?
So I held his hand until the rescue guys came.
Finally, power tools and extra hands arrived on the scene.
When they arrived, I went to them to brief them about the situation.
It was very dark, it was in the bush.
Crew leader Fabian quickly evaluated the damage.
We had to make a very quick assessment as to how he was trapped, what was actually trapping him.
They realized he was not the only man trapped under the rubble. He and two friends had made this unstable shelter their home.
They made a burrow under the foundation and they were actually living in it. And because they'd taken so much sand out of there, the foundation wasn't structurally safe anymore, and that is what actually caused it to collapse. We didn't know whether the site was structurally safe, whereas we had to walk on it, it was going to collapse further.
They knew exactly what to take out, and we start carrying all the equipment to the site.
The paramedic was lying on a ladder. She was trying to calm and reassure the guy because he was actually very badly trapped.
Fabian and the medical rescue team cleared access to the victim's head. They needed to get him back on the drip and onto oxygen.
The guy had been trapped there for a long time.
They knew he may not survive the difficult extraction process.
We used the hydraulic tools, which is it's called a spreader. It's like a little scissor, big scissor, and we lift it up and we chock it with wooden blocks, okay, to secure it. We lift it a little bit at a time and then we stabilized. Because it was on sand, you know, it was very unstable, so we had to be very careful. So it was very slowly done, and we lifted until we basically could move his body.
Inch by inch, they unearthed the man.
Once we had moved the concrete slab off him, we then had to start on his legs because there was another slab on top of his legs. And that was also quite difficult because it wasn't lying straight on top of him. It was his legs were actually twisted behind him.
A small slip of the jackhammer would cost the man his legs.
We'd actually go in, they look and they see what's going on, and then they move a little bit further. That's basically what we did until we could see, okay, that's his legs, and we need to get that off him now.
They finally freed his legs and made way for the medical team.
He was severely hypothermic from being wet and out in the cold in the middle of winter.
We asked him, do you know where you are? He couldn't remember where he was, but he had a smile on his face. That was important.
And I felt relieved, knowing that the patient is on his way to hospital and everything. That was for me the greatest relief.
Wet, cold and tired, the rescue team continued the search for the other two men. But sadly, they had been fatally injured in the collapse.
To us, there's always cause to bother. And whether you bother for one person and bother for 10 and eventually only get one, the fight never stops until it's 100% too late.
They worked through the night to clear the scene.
It was about 7 o'clock. When we walked into the road, it was amazing. The whole community was out there and they were applauding us. And we'd been busy for a long time, so it was nice to have a warm cup of coffee after all of that.
Everybody has a little role to play, you know, so it all comes together and it works perfectly.
We've got a brilliant team. And when I say team, I'm not talking about the people in green only. I'm talking about the private services in our area as well as the fire brigade and the law enforcement services.
Everyone pitching in throughout a long, freezing night to help people you and I often disregard. If this team inspires you to live life at 100%, vote for them. SMS the word endurance to the number on your screen. You can also vote online at www.centrumguardian.com. Centrum brings you tips on what to do in an emergency. If I saw someone who was trapped under some structure that had collapsed, what should I do?
Basically, you can calm and reassure the victim But do not attempt to move any structures because that might cause a secondary collapse, which would end up killing that person and yourself. Rather, call for help and get the professionals out there. That would be the best advice.
Who do I call?
Our national call center number is 10177, and they will put you through to the correct people that will activate all the appropriate resources for that emergency.
10177 if it's a landline, and from a cell phone, 112.
That's correct.
After the break, a teenager is caught in a rip current and swept out into the surf.
It changed within seconds.
Ek het gedink aan hoe ek hier gaan uitkom.
The 15th of January was a beautiful summer's day, great for going to the beach. A group of schoolboys were enjoying every moment when suddenly one of them was in trouble.
It was a stunning day. It was really a very beautiful day, and that's why we went to the beach with all the boys. I was standing on the beach and playing with the other kids that weren't in the water, and I had a constant watch or close watch to the guys that were in the water. And they were honestly really in between the flags, as they call it. All of a sudden, I saw that Ruan was not amongst the original group.
En ek het probeer uitswem en ek voel iets trek my, soos wat die see jou trek.
And he was probably about 20 meters more in towards the deep side of the sea.
Ek geskreeu om ek probeer vir my seker nog ek is nog agter.
As I looked, all of a sudden he was swept off his feet and he was swimming. And I mean, and I couldn't understand that, because how can you swim when the water is just above your knees? Not knowing that he was in this current, obviously.
Ruan was powerless to resist the strong current.
Daai tyd toe swem ek probeer uitkom te gewerkie. Ek myself kom kyk diep en niemand kan my sien nie.
Probably 30 seconds, 45 seconds later, Ruan was at least 30, 40 meters further away into the sea. And that's when we started panicking. I think it was 11 minutes past 11 that I phoned the NSRI.
Ons is net klaar gewees, al die bote gewas, geberre, toe ek 'n oproep kry van 'n onderwyser van die Bult Hoërskool.
And I could immediately see his face change.
Ek het onmiddellik in sy stem gehoor, hy's baie bekommerd en hy het vir my gesê die see is diep, die see is baie groot en het gesê ons moet baie vinnig maak.
Thankfully, I realized that going into the water is not the right thing to do, which meant I had nothing to do except phoning Henny.
Henning immediately dispatched the team. Torsten went ahead by car.
I knew the sea was big that day. I knew it was quite rough. What went through my mind, and again I remember that so clearly, is how many people are in the water, how far out are they?
Sometimes we could see him, sometimes we couldn't see him. Sometimes we could hear him, sometimes we couldn't hear him.
High time pressure, because when somebody's already got a phone call to say that they're in trouble, you know, time is of the essence. You've got literally a few minutes to play with, if even that.
In daai tyd het ek seker nog 2 oproepe van die onderwyser gekry en elke slag net gesê julle moet kom.
The second time I phoned Henny, he said to me, they'll be there in 10 minutes. I said to him, Henny, 10 minutes is too long. We don't have 10 minutes.
Jy weet iemand is in die moeilikheid en dit gaan 10 minute vat om daar te kom.
By this time, Ruan was more than 300 meters out to sea.
And I mean, 300 meters in sea is deep and it's far.
Ek het 'n bietjie banger gevoel. Ek het gedink aan hoe ek hier gaan uitkom. Dis al waaraan ek gedink het.
We've just got to get there as quickly as possible and get the boat down into the water.
Torsten arrived ahead of the others and took in the scene.
And there was a guy standing there with binoculars. And as I was looking through, I asked him what he was seeing. And so he said that there was one person in the water. I saw him It was obvious that it was a child. He was at the back line, right in the breakers and right in the rip current. It didn't look nice at all.
An experienced rescue swimmer, he knew exactly what to do.
I think instinct sort of takes over. I always phone before I go in to let the station commander know what the situation is, and I also remember saying I need a boat.
Torsten planned to use the current to his advantage.
What I know is I need to find the best spot to find the rip current. The rip current will take me there much quicker than if I take a straight line to wherever the person is.
And then I saw Torsten running about 50 meters towards my left, and I thought, hey, where are you going? I mean, you know, Ruan is there, he's not there.
Ek het hom gevoel, die branders het my permanent afgedruk onder toe. Was baie benoud.
The waves were very, very high. You have to dive quite deep under waves like that, otherwise you don't progress, which means that you don't have a lot of time when you come up for air again before you dive again. And what that also means is that you lose sight of who you're swimming to.
Die tyd toe ek sien niemand kan my sien nie. Die tyd toe ek voel, dit is verby, ek gaan te diep.
When I was about maybe 15, 20 meters away from him, there was that distance between the two waves. I could see, I had a direct line of sight, and I could see that he was going underwater. And that's when I got really scared. My gut told me I'm not going to make it.
Ruan was slipping in and out of consciousness.
Jou hele liggaam, jou longe voel. Dit voel as jy sukkel om asem te haal.
Then Torsten was carried towards Ruan on the powerful current.
Another wave got on top of him, but just as it hit him, I managed to grab hold of him.
Hy het my gepraat, hy het my gevra wat is my naam.
Confused and unfocused, the boy barely responded.
He said his name was Ruan. And the moment you've got a name and a person that's right in front of you, and especially a child, there's no ways you're going to let him go.
Ek het dit geweet, nou gaan ek hier uitkom. Ek het nie eers een oomblik getwyfel dat ek gaan.
What I focused on is using the current to swim him behind the breakers.
Torsten decided to wait behind the breakers for backup.
Because I had to get him out of those breakers first.
He knew the rescue boat was en route.
Knowing that he's reliant on you, you want to once again just get there, you know, as quickly as you can.
Once we got to the back line, I started talking to him, which also gives me time to assess what I'm dealing with. He was definitely not that conscious anymore, and although he was responding, he was not making any sense.
Help was close. His colleagues were trying to get access to the beach with the boat.
Die sleutel wou nie die boom oopsluit nie.
Precious seconds ticked by.
I looked to the beach, and what I saw was the red lights of the rescue vehicle still in the parking lot. So I knew there was something wrong.
They lost 10 crucial minutes barricaded behind the boom.
Wat baie is. En ons het besluit, nee, ons moet nou maar die boot dra.
There were a lot of people around, so everybody just grabbed the boat.
Behind the breakers, Ruan was almost out of time.
My assessment was that he was probably not going to be able to hold on much longer. So I made the call to swim him out.
That meant swimming the boy through 4-meter waves back to the beach.
And you know, one of your crew is in the water in 3.5-meter breaking seas. So it's pressure.
The rescue crew sped out to sea, hoping they were not too late.
Hulle het gery na waar ons hom die laaste gesien het.
I knew what they can do. I knew that there was nothing that was going to stop them getting to us.
The crew circled in search of the two.
We went around again because the surf was quite large. Looked for him and Torsten wasn't there.
Torsten had managed to drag Ruan to a sandbank.
That's when I heard it. It was like music to my ears. It was that unmistakable sound of an outboard at full rev.
On our way back, we saw Torsten waving.
So immediately we proceeded to him.
I picked up Ruan and sped away with him.
Ek was nooit so bly gevoel. Dit was 'n oomblik van groot blydskap. Ek was eintlik baie happy hy oomblik, baie bly.
Daai stadium was dit nog baie koud en ons het onmiddellik toerusting uitgehaal en space blankets om hom toe te maak en hom te begin opwarm en suurstof gegee.
Thorsten came to him and mentioned his name.
He turned around and I was there and he saw my face and you could see him react immediately. It was the most amazing thing for me personally as well. I mean, it still gives me goosebumps when I think of that moment.
And I knew, we're okay here. He saved him.
Toe ek die eerste dag weer by die skool kom, het ek vir myself gesê, van vandag af gaan ek my bes doen. Ek gaan iets van my lewe maak.
I remember he just ran up to me and hugged me. I had tears in my eyes. It's very emotional.
Power and skill, that's what it takes to face the sea under circumstances like that. If Thorsten inspires you to live life at 100%, vote for him now.
SMS the word stamina to the number on screen or vote online at www.centrumguardian.com. Vote now. Make a difference. Centrum brings you tips on what to do when you are caught in a rip current.
So if you look here, for example, the waves are coming in a nice straight line, the white water, that's a sandbank. You see the same thing there. And between those two is where you're going to find your rip current. And if you have a close look, you'll see that the water is blue. It's not that white water, so it does look deeper.
It looks actually calmer than the rest, but that is the dangerous spot.
That's the dangerous spot.
If you get into trouble, what should you do?
The most important thing, if I were to say only one thing, is try not to panic. The other thing to do is not to fight the current. The current is too strong. You're not going to